Hello, and welcome to Beyond Screens. My name is Alistair Aitcheson, and I co-host the Alternative Controller Show here on the IndieCade channel. We have a very special broadcast for you today. Regular viewers may remember Phoenix Perry as one of our very first guests on the Alt+Ctrl show. Phoenix is an alternative controller creator and an academic working at the University of the Arts, London. Today we are joined by Phoenix, who has been running a study pairing alternative controller developers with experts in disability studies and accessibility. Robin Baumgarten and Julia Makovich, both former guests of this show, as well as myself, were the controller developers. And we were joined by streamer Sightless Combat, communication scholar Louise Hickman, and game designer and intersectionality advocate Jade Hall-Smith. Before we begin, we have a few announcements, because the IndieCade Anywhere and Everywhere Festival is kicking off very soon, in just 1 month's time. The festival begins on the 4th of November, and the award show will be on the 5th of November, so please do come along to this very channel to see those. In the meantime, in the month running up to the festival, the Beyond Screen shows will be interviewing nominees from this year's festival here on the IndieCade Twitch channel. And if you want to find out more about the nominees in this year's festival, you can head to anywhere.indiecade.com and find out more about the incredible selection of games that you will be seeing at this year's festival. Now, on to the show. I'm going to pass the baton on now to Phoenix, who's going to tell us all about this study. Phoenix, take it away.
Alistair, thank you so much for hosting and for having us here today. I'm really grateful, really thankful to both you and IndieCade for this amazing opportunity to share this research with a larger group of folks and to have it live recorded. And so thanks. I think it's pretty special that a piece of research like this manages to get itself out into the public in this way. So hats off. This is a piece of research that I came up with Dr. Rebecca Feebrink, who's here on the stream live. And we came up with the idea of doing this study as part of a living lab that UAL, or University of the Arts London, is doing called Challenge Lab. And that's where we both teach and research. And this idea was to do a participatory action workshop where we worked with a community of accessibility experts who are coming from a place of lived experience and who have, sort of brought into their own creative practices in one way or another, their own access needs. And I think that that's a really fascinating and cool perspective. I know that I've been doing it in my own PhD research. And the reason that I was really interested in, and I picked these three designers to work with, is that I felt like they were working in a similar space. So my goal was to kind of ask the question, what values are they bringing into the design process? And what are their kind of ways in which they inform themselves around the kind of interaction models that they create with their work. So that's kind of how this got started. The study's taken a couple of steps, invited everybody to come along, and then I paired folks from my disability studies research with folks from my alt controller research. And I thought it would be really fun to take these two different perspectives and bring people together to see what each perspective offered to the other. And I think that that's been a really fascinating process. And the results to me are really unique and special. And that was the kind of first step. And then the second step was our kind of introduction meeting where everybody kind of met everybody and sort of got their head around what it is we were going to do. And the brief was to make a playful experience or alt control style game. And we've done that over the last couple of months. Everybody's kind of worked at their own pace. Some folks kind of met individually. Some people used Discord as their like main method for communication back and forth. Other folks, had different conversations with me over the months. And it's been fascinating to watch these projects kind of develop and grow. So that's now where we're at. We're to the point where we've all seen each other's work internally, and now we're ready to share it with the larger public. So without any further ado, I want to go ahead and kick it off with a Padlet exercise. So Padlet is a online kind of bulletin board where we can all sort of take a few minutes and just reflect about the values that we brought into our creative practice and into making these controllers and interfaces and playful experiences that we've all designed. So I'm going to go ahead and share screen now. Let me see. Does everybody have the link for the Padlet okay?
No, I wasn't aware there was one.
There is one. I'm going to put it in the chat in Zoom really quick. I checked their accessibility for voice interface, Sightless Combat, and it should be all right. Let me know if it's not.
We'll find out in a minute. Yes, hi,
I
everybody.
definitely,
Yeah, I was just...
wanted to make sure you could use it. Okay. So the password is controller. Yeah, exactly.
I just need to find the... Where's the message gone?
It's in.
No, I can find it. I found it. Hold on. Let me just find the actual message itself.
It's in the Zoom chat too.
Yep, I see it. It's not letting me actually open it or copy it or do anything with it. That is annoying.
So it's just, do you want me to read the URL to you? It might be easier that way.
Yeah, or just stick it in Discord. We
I'll stick it
apologize
in Discord.
We apologize for the technical difficulties, everybody. This happens. It wouldn't be a stream without a few gremlins.
Yep.
Always happens.
I think the gremlins are welcome, surely. You know, this is a...
Well, yeah, most definitely, as long as they don't cause too much disruption. Right, let's see. And the good thing is you can put the password in there as well, and that doesn't have to be a problem. Phoenix, I've got our message up here.
Alistair, could you do this really quick? Because I have Discord and everything.
Yes. Would you like me to screen share the Padlet?
Oh no, just share it. Oh, okay. I'm into Discord now. Hold on one second. I'll do it.
Okay.
Dun, 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 dun. Here you go.
Let me see. Right, I've got the Padlet. That's good, and it's got a password which is here. Oh wait, actually, that's not on here. Just hit the password.
It's just controller. It's just the word controller.
Easy enough. There we are. I've never used Padlet before. This will be a learning process.
Cool.
There we are. It's asking me to sign up, apparently.
Alistair, Alistair, can you see this okay?
I can see this okay, yes.
Great. So just if you want to take a second, add a couple cards about like what values you brought into the design process. And like where you were when you started and what kind of informed your work, I'd be thankful. All you have to do is click the plus button to add a card and then just start typing.
The mechanical clicking of keyboards.
Yep. It's a fully immersive experience. It's getting some good stuff starting to appear. The cuteness, attentiveness, woolly data, novel controls.
There we go. Hopefully that actually... Oh, what? Okay. Oh, that's interesting. So we're just putting it in the content thing with just no subject, I guess.
Yeah, you just sort of start typing. Yeah, you're typing on my note right now, possibly, Ben.
Oh,
That's okay though. That's fine. Go
Well,
for it.
that's unintended because it just doesn't look like there's anything else there. It just looks like it's my stuff. Let's
I
hit
think
upload.
it's me typing on your note, Phoenix. Sorry.
Oh, it's you? Okay, cool.
Actually, upload isn't upload. This is a very strange interface. Speaking of odd interfaces. So I guess you have to just hit. Oh, I see. Yeah, what you're seeing now is the learning process of figuring out a completely unfamiliar website. There we go. That's better.
Oh, perfect.
Hopefully that actually worked.
It did.
Good. Now, can I read other people's posts? Yes, I can.
I'm trying to think. What other values did I bring in?
There we go. Getting the hang of this now. Doesn't matter if it goes in subject or content, really, as long as it goes in, I suppose, with this. Oh, you can't just hit enter. You just have to go up to published and then hit it. Okay. Learning, chat. This is why we are here. We are all here to learn.
Yep. We've got some more good stuff coming through. We've got imagination, experience of having built controllers with sighted assistance, connecting several players, practicality, care, a love of silliness, empathy, a love of mess, desire to make something arty and playful. Main question was, what device is different that you could play games on than working from there to figure out things like collaboration?
Yeah, I know that's a longer note, but it's just,
Yeah.
what came into my head. I'm not used to writing in post-it notes, which is essentially what these are, just virtual post-it notes.
This is really
Durability.
great.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, I'm really loving this. Love of silliness is, I think, giving me great joy right now.
Yeah.
Bonding, that's also beautiful. Access intimacy, beautiful. Woolly data, as we know, I love.
And who doesn't love woolly data? It's all soft.
Amazing. Okay. So if we want to go ahead and wrap up this exercise, I'm going to give you guys about another minute to work on this. I think this is good because I think leading design from a values-oriented perspective versus a kind of user case perspective is a much better way to come into the design process, because it lets us start thinking from like, what do we value? What do we care about? What do we want to begin with? Right. And I'm really enjoying seeing what you guys brought into this. Cool. So, ooh, there's so many good things. I don't want to stop anybody from writing. So feel free to keep adding. But for the sake of the time, I'm going to go ahead and now get open my, I'm going to stop screen sharing and get open my rundown so I can get us all kind of going on the timeline, because I know some folks are on a strict schedule tonight. Let's go ahead now and let's have a look at the pieces, and I wanted to start with Jade and Julia. Would you all mind taking it away? And Jade, tell us what you've got there.
Okay. One sec. Let me just. Am I unmuted? Just so.
Yep, you are loud and clear.
Okay. So I wanted to quickly just talk about my interest in like physical computing and stuff, going back to when I was on Phoenix's course on physical computing at Goldsmiths. So I had an interest in like sensors and disability aids in terms of supporting disabled people, but also being able to give them independence as well, and also just generally raising awareness. So one of the things that I did was experimenting with Wikinator, which was created by Rebecca, and I used that in a game to be able to, as a controller, move your character around the screen. Anyway, going forward on that, I was when we started this project, I was thinking, how can I use a bodily function, because like body movement, to create something that helps with control and movement, because I'm autistic, but I also have chronic pain conditions as well. So I have limitations sensory wise, but also physically. When we first started this, I think I had just begun my pregnancy, and I was finding it very hard as an autistic person with sensory issues to deal with a lot of some of the interoception, which interoception means like internal feelings in your body, and also in turn bonding with the baby as well, because obviously this is something that causes me a bit of distress when there's a lot of movement, and also attending a lot of hospital appointments, which I struggled with. So me and Julia and Phoenix were all, when we had our discussions, we were talking about a device that could be like a playful experience that could help me with interoception issues, bonding, and also it's a playful experience without me having to do too much physical work. I've always loved the instrument called a theremin, which is a very old-fashioned instrument. It's like it's a long kind of plank, and it's got like this aerial, and you can move your hands and it makes noises. It's kind of spooky in a way, and I've always loved anything that involves movement, because when I stim, which is a word that the autistic community use when they're self-regulating, I like to move around a lot, like rocking, moving my arms, etc. So that's something that helps me as an autistic person to self-regulate. So I wanted a playful experience that would allow me to move around, but not too much in terms of my chronic disability. So we came up with an idea called the cat synth. Here she is. It's a very awesome playful experience. Let me just make sure it's on. Yeah. So the I'll demonstrate it, and then I'll pass it over to Julia. So this I've called her Cynthia, as in SYTH, like synth. She has always forget what it's called, a light reactor. Probably not the right word, but basically it has two modes. There is when it's on the blue setting, I don't know if you can see it, it's blue, but when it's on the blue setting, you can beep the nose and move around your hand like a theremin, and it will change the noise. So there's not much light in the room. Maybe if you could switch the light on for me, please, Gabby. This part is an extremely soft speaker. It's been padded. This goes on my stomach. Ted, my kid, we've called them Teddy. They really love this. Thank you. So I can interact with them by playing music, which I've created, by moving my hand, making movements. So I can do any kind of crazy movements to allow them to hear the music inside my belly. And then when it's on the other setting, this is the correct me if I'm wrong, Julia. This is the setting where automatically, depending on the lighting. So this is probably more best suited for when I'm having pain days and I can't really be moving around. Honestly, I've really enjoyed using this because it's allowed me to stim. It's allowed me to bond with the baby. It's very soft. It's cute, and it was just a great.
I'm sorry, we've just lost your audio, Jade. I think
you unplugged something, my friend.
Oops. Yeah, we don't have any audio from you, Jade, if you can hear us.
I'll give it a sec.
Oh,
you're back.
Yeah,
sorry. You're back in.
What I was just saying is that it was an amazing experience to be able to collaborate with someone and to help with the bonding experience. It's both a disability aid and it's also a very good baby tool, I guess. Baby does like it. I think they like 8-bit video games. I kind of like I imagine them to come out to the tune of Mario coming out of the tunnel because they really enjoy listening to like this 8-bit style music and all of the different tones and stuff. So I'll pass it on to Julie and she can talk to you about more the detailed aspects and the creation process we went through.
Okay, so Jade, I'm really glad that you like it. You have no idea how happy that makes me. No, I'm honestly so happy, and I'm also glad that Teddy likes it too. So, hey, I'm glad that overall it works as a toy for you, and like also just for you and the baby. So it makes me very happy. So as for the cat synth itself, so it's got 2 modes. It's got the theremin mode where you boop the nose. I forget which LED does it, to be honest. It was a while ago. And the other one,
that's the blue one.
Yeah, okay.
Blue. Yeah, sorry.
The blue one. So then the green one is for actually cap touch. So you touch the little paws with that one. And the reason why it might be reacting without you doing anything is because it kind of relies on, I guess, the heat or like I guess whatever current it can sense. So I guess it sometimes there's just something around. So that's why it sort of probably goes off on its own. That one is not as much of a precise sensor, so there's some work to be done there. But yeah, you just kind of defeats one. Yeah. So yeah, I just wanted to focus on making a very, very soft toy. And the booping part was, going back to our time at Goldsmiths, it was inspired by the light theremin example in the Arduino book, but I improved the noises to make them slightly more synthy because when the piezo is left to its own devices, it's just kind of distressing for everyone involved. So yeah, I just mostly so when designing it, I mostly wanted to just make sure that Jade liked it, because ultimately Jade would be the person using it. So I want to make sure that it was soft, that it wasn't nothing about it was kind of too aggressive or abrasive, because from what I understood that you don't like those kinds of things. So I wanted to focus on just making it overall calming and also durable, because you'll be taking this out in public. So I just wanted to make sure that it's something which is appropriate for public use, that's portable, and that will be able to last while you need it. So yeah, I just I tried to build that into the design.
I totally forgot to mention the port aspect. I've got a bit of a pregnancy brain, but it's the green censored one is the when you can move around with the paws. So I think we discussed at one point because you were sending me samples of the piezo, and I was saying that babies can hear a certain frequency or they react more to a certain frequency. So we kind of like changed that so that it wasn't anything that was too harsh for them. And also for me with someone who has sensory issues. But yeah, it's a great experience. There was one time that the cat would just not switch off, and in the middle of the night, we were just hearing some really weird noise, and we were just like, "What the hell?" It was quite spooky, but it was funny. But yeah, we had to take the batteries out. But it's been really good as a playful experience for both myself and for Teddy as well, and for my
Amazing.
partner as well. My wife, she really enjoys it as well.
Jade, can you
glad.
hold the speaker up to the mic so everybody can hear it?
Yeah.
Zoom's filtering it out. So
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Can you hear it at all? One sec.
A little bit now.
I might need to change the settings because I think I put it on.
Well, I could play one of the videos maybe because
it's
the
probably a
videos
better
have the
idea.
audio in it.
Yeah,
Yeah?
the video will be better. Yeah.
Yeah. I know I sent you a bunch, Alistair, so take a look and see what's there. I haven't had a chance to label them exactly.
Great.
But I think that they should
Alistair-
all have sound.
Yeah. So
Awesome.
we've got.
Alistair, pick one, and then we'll move on to you and Louise. So.
Yeah. So we can hear that right now.
If there's meant to be video audio coming through, it isn't coming through.
That's, no, it's just
Okay.
going out to the audience at the moment.
Oh, okay.
So that is that's fantastic. I love these like generative sounds. They are lovely. Just a real kind of lovely sparkle to them. There we go. So it's that's I've stopped playing the videos now.
Okay.
Great. So this is amazing, and I love it so much. I don't even know what to say. It turned out better than I would have expected, and when I saw it, I almost died. It's so cute. So I want to leave some time for Q&A. So Alistair and Louise, can you tell us about your project now?
Yes. We'd be delighted to. So let's scooters onto the big screen now. There we go. So yes, our project was called the Kettle Network. So I guess I'll show it to you now, and I guess then Louise will tell you a bit about the behind the scenes of it, you know, the inspirations behind it. But this is just an ordinary kettle, or is it? Attached to the kettle are 3 temperature sensors. So there's one up here, and one here, all coming into an ESP32, which is like an Arduino, but it can communicate over Wi-Fi. So what this modified kettle is doing is it is detecting when it gets hot, and when it does start to get hot, it will start to send data over the internet showing the relative temperature of these 3 sensors. Now, the 3 sensors data is going to be used by a website, which I'm just going to share with the audience now. And what you should see on your screens now is these patterns being generated are being generated. They are moving around like a kind of spirograph based on the sensory input that has come in from the sensors attached to the kettle. So the temperature dictates kind of the length of the arm, how fast it rotates, and it creates these beautiful swirling patterns as a kind of like driven by this data that's being generated by the kettle. One of the things we kind of quite liked about this idea is the idea that you could use this kettle to send each other like secret messages on the network, where different ways of boiling a kettle would result in different patterns of kind of swirly spirograph being output on the screen. And perhaps you could use a kind of a logbook of different patterns and their interpretations, almost like reading tea leaves to find out what secret messages other people on the network are trying to send you. So that's that. I'll switch back to the view so you can see the kettle again. But yes, perhaps Louise, you could talk a little bit about what inspired us.
Thank you, Alistair. It's always so great to see the kettle in action, especially as you're posing with it right now, with the kind of wire taped onto the kettle. It looks really great. So how did we get here? Well, actually, this took us quite a long time and a lot of discussion to get here. We went from thinking about captioning and how captioning works, which is like something I do in my research. And then we started thinking about how do we understand real time? So like when technology happened in real time, and like how can we play with that aspect of real time, and especially in our homes, like, so how can we play with the technology and like the culture and networks of real time inside our homes? So we started looking at everyday objects that we might find in our home. So how we can play, like, use those objects. So it could be like a doorbell, a light switch, it could be a remote control, toaster, kettle. So we were really fascinated with how our built environment, especially when there's all this work on like technologies on focusing on smart homes. So I guess our kind of project was like an intervention in a way, because then we were like, well, let's invert smart home and think about a silly home. And so really start to take apart some of the questions around what is like productive data or data that's interesting. And then we had this really great discussion as a group where we talked about woolly data and how woolly data can become tactile, soft, and something that we can think with, rather than this kind of really hard, like, quantitative, like, this is going to be a productive technology that's going to solve all our lives. So we really unpack that and moved away from that. Did I get everything, Alistair?
Yeah, I think that was pretty good. I mean, I can't remember if I mentioned it when I was describing the swirling patterns, but I mean, it's in my head they are kind of like tea leaves, reading tea leaves in that sort of imprecise kind of way, where it's like, the tea leaves are not going to settle into a specific pattern and you go, oh, that pattern, that means this exact thing, Tea leaves are going to settle in a sort of unpredictable way that you go, oh, maybe it's a bit of this, maybe it's a bit of that. And I think there's something that I quite, and I think we both quite like that kind of thing where there's a bit of ambiguity in there. There's a bit of, because life is full of ambiguity.
I should add that when we landed on Kettle Network, we were also thinking about team making as a political tool as well. And so that kind of really kind of added to the idea of a kettle network, and why those visual diagrams of the turning of the tea leaf being information is to kind of suggest this like network of working towards something. I know what that goal is, that horizon is, but it makes me, interested.
Yeah. I mean, I remember in one of our discussions, you talked about having seen it was a sort of suffragette tea set. It was a tea set used by the suffragettes at their meetings, about 100 years ago. And I think that idea that something as kind of mundane as tea making has a political significance. I think that was one of these things that made our eyes light up.
Yeah, but also we can't ignore that, like, a colonial thing there. But that's what we were like, leaning on the activist side rather than the colonial side. But yeah.
Yes. So I don't know if you have any questions for us, Phoenix, if there's anything you want to...
I'm going to save the questions to the end, but I'm going to go ahead now just for, pushing things on schedule to let Sightless Combat and Robin tell us about their project. And from there, we will go to a Q&A. Well, I'm going to have Caleb introduce himself as well, and then we'll go to a Q&A.
Fine. Robin, do you want to go first and tell your side of it? We'll switch it round instead of having
All right.
me go
Sounds
first. We can
good.
switch it
Yeah.
around and you can, give your side of it.
And,
Okay. Yeah. So first of all, oh, sorry, Phoenix.
And Jade, I know that you were expressing headache concerns. So if you're not feeling well, feel free to dip off it. Stick around if you want to, because I love having you here.
Oh, no, I took some paracetamol and some caffeine, so I should be fine. And this is really fun and insightful, so I'll listen on.
Okay, cool.
Thanks.
Awesome.
Awesome. Yeah. So maybe just in front of this, our project isn't quite as far as the other projects, and it's mostly, well, it's entirely my fault because I've been basically not a single week at home fully for the last 3 months. So right now I'm in Japan, and so I don't have any hardware here. So we'll talk a bit more about the concept that we had in mind, and I have some mock-ups that I can show,
Well,
but
thankfully
sadly not a finished project.
Well, I have at least part of it. Actually, I might as well show that. So this, I mean, we don't really have a name for it other than just the tube. But it is literally sort of a poster tube, or the version I'm holding up is a very early prototype that we built on like the first day of discussion. But it's literally a poster tube with arcade buttons. Hold on, let me just move this around to camera. There we go. With arcade buttons, one in each end. One is convex and one is concave. Hold on, I'll show you the other one. There we go. Yeah, so you can see those are just in the ends of it. The idea being that inside this, can I actually get this out? That's the question. No, I'm not going to try. Yeah. Oh no, wait. Hang on. I can get this one. There we go. The idea being that inside here would be an actual circuit board. There isn't one in this build, but it would be inside there. And the idea, generally, was I'll just say this from my side, and then you can explain from your point of view as well, Robin. But the idea from my side was basically, what can this shape do that then lets you play various games alongside your friends, as well as being single player, because a lot of the time collaboration is off limits, or it's very restricted. So having a fun thing that you can potentially even be active with and have a great laugh with, with these fun sort of tube devices is kind of where it started off. But yeah, Robin, given you worked on hardware iterations and stuff, I'll let you take over.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's exactly where we started. So when we met up the first time, we came up, or Sightless had this idea fairly fast of having some kind of tube controller and use this in a way that doesn't use any kind of visual feedback, right? So we were kind of early on immediately experimenting with, okay, what could we do with this kind of interesting shape? What kind of in and outputs can we use? So we went fairly quickly to a kind of object approach, figuring out, okay, this could be like, we can use some buttons, but maybe buttons are a bit boring. So maybe we use some accelerometers as well, so we can have the orientation, like how you pitch it, how you roll it. And then also some interesting feedback. So maybe some speakers, but I was also thinking maybe it could have some kind of internal weights or some knock sensors that push the left or right side in different directions. So that was kind of my brain going immediately, oh, what could we add to this? How can we make this interesting? And then, I think Sightless, you had some good ideas for games as well. I think we were talking about tennis at some point. And that's quite an interesting.
That had been discussed. The general idea was kind of, I think, subconsciously influenced by kind of the old Atari sort of game collections, I guess, where you'd have, a few games on a single cartridge. I think inwardly it might have been motivated by that, which was quite a cool thing to realize later. It wouldn't have to sound retro, but the idea of, sorry, is that coming through, or is that, there we go.
Yep.
The idea of these kind of retro things, where you could play lots of different things on one device was quite cool. So we'd said about racing, we'd said about tennis, we'd said about I can't even think what the other games were, but we'd written down a list of a bunch of different things. Sort of rifle
Pinball
shooting.
was one of them. Yep.
Yeah, sort of like rifle shooting.
There was like like a maze game. I don't know exactly anymore
like a
how
sort
that
of
would work. It's probably
tilted, like a sort of moving a ball through a maze kind of thing, like a marble run sort of a thing. There were lots of little ideas that we had. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get any up and running. Well, at least I wasn't able to assist in getting any up and running, but we had plans for it. Just schedules didn't exactly line up, unfortunately. But the concept is definitely there, and who knows, it may be developed in future anyway. So.
Yeah, that would be great. I hope I find some more time, and then we'll definitely get back to it.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much else to say really, but the plan was to put these small games together, and then you could just load them all up from one small interface as well. So you'd load it up to start, you'd start it, you could reset it maybe, and then load a different game. You wouldn't have to like change anything; it would all be just embedded in there. And hypothetically, I guess if you wanted to then later on have updates to the various games and things, then you could potentially do that as well. That probably wouldn't be too complex.
Yeah, I really liked some of the conversations that you and I had, Sightless Combat, around playing games with your dad, and the idea that we had for making a sound-based version of Pong. I thought that when you told me that, I was like, oh my God, that would be so cool. Like to have your dad have one of the tubes and then you have one of the tubes and then you're playing Pong, but with sound. I was like, I've got to see this.
Because I mean, audio-only versions of Pong or iterations on the Pong formula have been around for a long time. I mean, Jim Kitchen, who's no longer with us, an audio-only game developer of relative renown, he put together a version of Pong. I'm not entirely sure when, but it must have been sort of late 90s, early 2000s, I would estimate. And it's been around probably for even longer than that, with things like Breakout for DOS, which was I think a PCS Games title, if my memory serves. But the point being, the idea's been around for years. But the closest thing I've found was maybe 1 or 2 games on phones, and that's about it. But there's been nothing in terms of cool, innovative, like little controllers. Like you could take the idea being, you could take these away on holiday with you. You're sitting on a sofa, you're both on like 2 different sofas, one at each side of the room, and you're just going, like just hitting it between each other, just bam, and then the other person hits it back, and it would all be through, speakers, just like a little speaker on the device. It wouldn't have to be, super high fidelity, but you could at least make it sound decent. The speakers now are a lot better than they were, so. Yeah, there's potential.
That would be
there.
amazing. Yeah, that'd be amazing. Well, I'm really excited to see what you guys do with it in the future. Are you guys done? Because if so, I'm going to kick it over to Caleb for the sake of time.
That's fine. Yeah.
Awesome, Caleb. Tell us a little bit about what you've been doing.
Sure. Caleb Kraft. I have this little thing called the Controller Project, where I work with volunteers around the world to 3D print accessories for people with limb difference to be able to play video games. Anything from, just a single little, if you've got a little issue with a finger, all the way up to a complete missing limb. We have a whole library of publicly available free 3D printed parts you can choose from. Print on your own, have a friend print them, or I can have a volunteer print them and ship them to you. I love these things that you all built. These are fantastic. I've been sitting here kind of silent, trying to keep mental tabs on what all these were. I have to say, the stuffed animal, that thing, I just want to hug it. And if it had a little vibrator motor in there to maybe add like a purring aspect to the physical, optional, of course, so it isn't sensory overload, but I would probably just keep that thing with me all of the time. The ephemeral nature of the teapot is really interesting. I read the design brief beforehand, and it didn't really strike me, but listening to you describe it, it really stands out to me. And while a teapot may not fit me, I personally would really enjoy having some kind of art on my wall that was displayed that changed based on my biorhythms or my activities during the day, that was completely ephemeral, that at the end of the day disappeared and a new day brought a new one. I love that concept. I think it's really interesting, and I'm curious if you plan to go any further with it. This tube thing, I didn't get it until just now with that description of being able to sit on opposite sides of the room and play Pong audibly, and maybe with like a little solenoid, like to feel a little tap in your hand. That is fantastic, and I could even see that less analog, like across the world or in different rooms or something.
Yeah, definitely.
That's an interesting. That's a really interesting gameplay mechanic. That's very cool. I didn't really have questions. I don't know if that's where we're at right now, Phoenix, but I didn't really have questions. I just wanted to say these comments that these are all so fantastic.
That's super cool. I wanted to see if Rebecca, if you had any thoughts or questions at this point.
I don't have specific questions to add. I know you and I talked about some questions and I'll let you ask them. But before I let you do that, I also just want to say how exciting it is to see these designs and the prototypes that you've all made. I also really want to use them, and they've sparked all these other ideas for me of stuff that I want to make, or I can't wait to show some of these to my students, hopefully this term. So yeah, well done, everybody. This is super cool.
Awesome. Well, if that's it, I'm going to kick it into the questions. And my very first question that I wanted to ask is, what points in the process were there a challenge that you all had to consider? So I know we had a couple of ideological mismatches and then moments of gelling, and I'm really interested in what those were.
I remember Louise and I think we had a sort of a point in our creative process where we kind of realized where we were kind of looking at this from kind of different angles. Now I'm trying to remember what the specifics of that were. Can you remember, Louise?
I remember. I do
Yeah.
remember, actually. It probably maybe the third or fourth time we met, I didn't really understand this as a play experiment. I saw this as more performative. So thinking about how maybe this is the researcher in me, that how can I create these circumstances to create a different outcome? So if we were to look at the diagrams, I would be actually, why don't we see if we can quantify something with the data that we generate? And then we kind of got stuck, and you were like, oh, but that's not really a play. And then that was interesting moment for me, because it forced me to stop looking at our kind of conversation as this kind of research project, but actually really think about how we might interact with an object. Is that how you remembered it?
Yeah, well, I mean, from my perspective, I had a similar thing where I had to sort of sit back and go, I think I've been approaching this from, a position that I assumed was universal, and actually just very specific to how my mind worked, because kind of my immediate thoughts were, we're going to do such and that, but how do we make it playful? How do we make it a game? How do we make it, but it needs to be able to be understood and things like that. And I think the realization that, well, this doesn't need to be anything in particular. This is an opportunity for us to experiment, and that this kind of, I think I'd come from a very kind of sort of game design mindset of, well, the player needs to be stepped through a bunch of stuff. And I think from talking to you, I realized why have I come into this with this assumption that there is a player, for example, and I think that sort of, that was a big kind of eye-opening moment for me.
I wanted to kind of like talk as well about me and Julie's experience. So yeah, I mean from you and Louise's experience as well, I was going to say that I guess it's different because you've come off it from two different standpoints, because you're like a games designer, and Louise, I believe, is not from that background. So yeah, I mean, in a different sense, me and Julia kind of come from the same kind of standpoint. We both went to the same university and stuff, so we'd known each other beforehand anyway, which made the process for me a lot easier, a lot more accessible. What I did want to say was that when we first started talking about this stuff, I think we were talking about just like controllers in general, and how, with the Xbox controllers, you can design them at the Xbox controller lab or whatever it's called, and there's so much more custability, but it's not always easy to use a controller in the sense of if you're disabled or have any kind of differences. It's going to be easy for you to navigate using a controller and stuff like that. So I think it was like a week afterwards. It might not have been on the first meeting. It was probably the second meeting that I told her the issues that I was having in regards to pregnancy and stuff like that. And I was given ideas about movements and stimming and, bonding with baby and stuff like that. And we were able to come up with this really super cool device. I can't remember how we settled on the cat. It's probably because I have two cats myself. Yeah, we settled, and the good thing about that was obviously it's really soft, so it's tactile. It's it's a really nice sensory kind of like product. It doesn't feel so mechanical. It's got that nice soft feeling on the inside. It's got the mechanics on the on the outside, it's got the softness, and inside it's got the mechanics. So for someone who maybe doesn't understand any electronics or sensory stuff, it kind of helps with, getting used to the feeling, and, design wise, very easy to understand in terms of just the LEDs and the very simple buttons. It was a really good experience designing something like this. I didn't think we'd get to that point. I do have a fascination with plushies in general. I've got like, let's just say like over 10, maybe 20, I don't know, of different plushies. I do like stuff that is squidgy. I've got like Squishmallows. So, that does really help with the whole tactile experience for me. Is there anything you wanted to add, Julia, to any of this? I might have been forgetting something.
Yeah, I don't really know when we decided on the cat either. I just saw the plushie on Amazon because I think at that point we were discussing soft controllers and maybe embedding it in something soft, and I was like, this looks cute. So I think, yeah. So I think at least that's where I found the cat.
Yeah.
Was your
But
policy
yeah,
was your
for-
policy, Julia, just if in doubt, cat? Was that your sort of your idea?
I feel like it's a pretty good policy.
Yeah, agreed. As a cat person myself, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say it was a very simple, straightforward kind of design process on my end anyway. I said all the things that I'm comfortable with, all the things that probably wouldn't be very suitable for my sensory or physical needs. things that, you know, I linked Julia to I think research or some kind of credible page about how babies herring in utero. So, you know, she was able to kind of look into that and see what kind of tones and sounds would be the best suitable. It was a great experience.
Amazing. I would like to, that actually segues, sorry, that actually segues into my next question perfectly, which is traditional design methods. Did you all use them or not? And if so, why not? And how did you kind of iterate your design method while you were working?
I think it depends on what you mean by traditional design methods, because for me, it's always involved. I guess I tried to approach it as far as I would making something for any other client. It's just I wanted to get a list of things that they want and things that they don't want. And especially considering that Jade would be using this nearly every day in her life, but at least for the next few months, I wanted to make sure that it was something which would actually be useful for that situation. So yeah, it was mostly just I just wanted to just listen to her and make sure that this is something that she would actually enjoy.
Yeah, and obviously in a way I had to advocate for myself and for baby as well, and that's something that I do in general in terms of disabilities advocacy and stuff. But I think it's also we collaborated entirely online. We didn't actually physically meet up to do any of this. So in sense of traditional methods, I guess that's not really the traditional collaboration that you would do. But for me, like I have to say, like with COVID and everything, I've actually found it way more accessible now than pre-COVID in terms of, like, you know, being able to talk to people more online than physically meeting them. I'm not saying that I don't like physically meeting anyone, but because of my introvertness, sometimes it can be very draining to physically go out and meet people. So actually being able to collaborate and talk entirely online is a lot more helpful, especially when it's got tools like closed captions and my assistive technology to support me, etc. It makes it so much easier for me. So in that sense, it was a wholly fun experience. It's entirely accessible. I only had to obviously drive to where Julia was staying to collect Cynthia. So, you know, that was not an issue for me. So it was a great experience.
Sightless and Robin, do you have anything? I mean, I could go, but I feel like you haven't had a chance to, you know, I'd like, yeah.
I mean, obviously we're like a bit earlier in the, like we didn't have any follow-up meetings yet because the controller doesn't really exist, right? So that's, I really want to see like how that dynamic works for that as well, because in the initial meeting, I think in a way, I mean, I don't know, we used the design methods that I normally use, where we're just kind of brainstorm around a constraint, right? And then Sightless came up with, obviously, I mean, it was used to, you know, like non-visual feedback, but also we fairly quickly arrived at the tube as an object. And so Sightless brought that up as like his kind of shape of choice.
It was just, sorry, Robin. I was going to say.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say the tube itself. It was, when I read the original brief, you know, of, I can't remember the precise wording, but it was basically create a non-traditional controller. I think was the way I'd looked at it. You know, I thought, you know, what is that? What does that constitute? And just the first shape that kind of popped into my head was a tube, and I was like, you know what, we'll go with this. There was no real rhyme or reason to it. It just kind of happened, and I was like, you know what, fine. Sometimes that's just the way it works. And I just thought, we'll just go with it and see where we end up. And if it, you know, it's an idea. And then the thing is, my mind just kind of ran away with itself and just was like, you could do these games on it, or this kind of thing, or that. And I was like, okay, we've got ideas that we can use. So I just took those up with me, in my head, and just, went from there. And there wasn't really, the ability for an iterative design process, at least, during the time period of the research. But the ideas definitely were there on the day. It was very much a process of just discuss, realize, rediscuss, and kind of just sort of a sort of progressively a progressive range of ideas that kind of just happened as we went along, very dynamically. I think is a good way to describe it.
I've actually got a quick question to ask Robin or Sightless. So I can't remember if I'm correct in this, but I believe one time Phoenix had showed us this controller, which came with the PlayStation. Do you remember that, Phoenix? It's like this long, it's like not that big. It's like the size of a Wii controller. It had a ball on the top.
Oh, you mean the PlayStation Move?
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one. It reminded me a little bit of that, but a lot more accessible, because obviously you've got something that's bigger, it's easier to hold, and it's just more simpler, I guess. And plus, with the PlayStation Move, you still need a console or device to connect it to, whereas I really like the idea that you had the embedded games in it. So
yeah, I mean, the final product wouldn't be, well, it wouldn't necessarily be this big. Because it might be, but it might not be, because you don't want to swing this and like accidentally hit a light fitting or something.
Yeah.
So there's that consideration too. But equally, it could be that big. But if it's sort of essentially a board, then you could, as long as if it's a board with a set of, say, buttons and things attached to it, then you could potentially embed it into different sizes of tube. So there's that too, depending on how how the final product were to be designed.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask that next as well, if there was like an element you guys thought of like having it a bigger tube, or even just like having it in different sizes. Like say you were selling it in the shops, you can have it in a smaller size or a larger size to suit the person who's playing it, or if it was just something that could be extended or modified.
Yeah, we talked about extendability.
We had this brief idea of like trombone style, and now it's trombone champ is out, so that would be very thematically appropriate.
I mean, if it were accessible, it'd be even better. But that's a whole other discussion.
Yeah.
But in terms of that though, we thought about maybe having the two tubes together, and you kind of twist apart, so then you've got your two tubes, like kind of what was the example? I think it was Tron Light Cycles. I was thinking of, where you sort of twist the tube and it just kind of all folds out. But in terms of the general idea of having multiple tubes or whatever, or different sizes of tubes, that's definitely a thing that could be done. I don't see why not. It's just a matter of essentially stick the components in to the tube itself. Because when I built, I was saying about building controllers on the Padlet. I've built actually two separate ones over the years. I built a large scale. They're both stickless fight sticks, basically. So it's sort of hitbox style controllers, for those of you that know what they are. But where all of the buttons are in sort of standard shapes. So whereas a hitbox would have the left, down, and right arrows, and then the up arrow in the middle between your two thumbs, mine had the up arrow where you would think it would be on, say, a standard keyboard. So the up arrow is above the down. And what I did was I built one with assistance, designed the layout myself, everything, bought all the parts for it. And then I realized about a year or so later that I needed a thinner version to take with me during travel, so during journeys and stuff. And so what I ended up doing was buying a whole new set of parts and building a whole new shell, and essentially using the exact same layout, just smaller. So, it's kind of the same principle. If you were to take, the same set of parts and stick it in a different shell, you would still have the same setup. It'd just be slightly different, sort of physically. So I feel like there's definitely scope there for stuff like that.
Awesome. Thanks, Alistair. I would love to hear about you and Louise's process.
Yeah, I mean, so Luis and I, I guess, like, we had a lot of discussions. I mean, we met, fairly regularly, once a week to have, to talk, bounce ideas around. And I think it was an interesting kind of sort of the kinds of conversations I think we had sort of seemed to evolve because at the beginning of the process, it was almost like we were looking for a problem to solve. Like we had both of our areas of expertise, and we had things that we were interested in that level of expertise and things. And I've made games with paper shredders, and Luis has worked a lot with stenography. So there was this kind of language was this theme that kept on coming up for us. But it was really, as we spoke more, I think the big shift for us happened when we stopped talking so much about looking for problems to solve and just started talking about stuff we liked. And when we started to, talked about stuff we liked and stuff that entertained us, that's when we found started to find ideas where we were both going, ooh, oh, you know what else it could do? You know what else it could do? And I think that's that was a very interesting part of the process. I think so I usually work on my own, and so this kind of process of collaborating with another person is kind of unusual to me. I'm either taking directions or I'm making stuff completely on the fly, going, oh, what sounds like a daft idea, and then going ahead and making it. And then finding out what's wrong with it when I've done that. I think working with another person, you're listening to each other, and what was very helpful for us both is we both have quite a similar sense of humor, and our sense of we both have a love of that kind of silliness, of that kind of messiness, of that kind of chaos that once we started talking about just the strange and unusual things that we've seen and have engaged us and that we've been excited about, then I feel like we've really found our kind of common creative ground, and that's when things started to kind of barrel forwards for us.
Interesting. Yeah. One of the themes that I noticed amongst all of you all was this kind of attentiveness to affinity. There was kind of like you and also your group, and then also Jade and Julia were looking for ways to bring people closer together, or have a closeness. And even if it was through something that was mediated, there was still this need or desire to play and have a warmth. There was a warmth to it, and a connectedness that I really loved. And Sightless Combat, I heard you express that as well when you talked about playing games with your dad. And I was like, oh, okay, this is where this feels similar. In that everyone was looking at how to play with someone who either they cared for or who they loved. And I thought that was a different kind of perspective than I'd seen other people take into making game controllers. And I enjoyed that a lot, this kind of sense of care and community and networking and connection.
I mean, in a way, sorry to finish, I just wanted to say in a way that was new to me because not because I never played multiplayer games, in the sense that this isn't really a multiplayer game, but it's a multifaceted experience between me and the baby, or my partner and the baby, or whoever and the baby. But when it comes to gaming on video games and stuff, I'm always on single player. I don't like playing with other people. So this was something new for me to actually create something that was connecting two people or more together as well. It's really enjoyable. I mean, I have a Xbox Connect and I have a Wii, and I think one of the things we talked about in the design process was making something similar to that, which involves movement but not too much, due to the fact that I have restrictive limitations. And it was really fun to make something that was able to bring me and the baby together, but not in a way it would cause any discomfort. It was a great idea. I mean, yeah, Julia was amazing. She's always made amazing physical controllers, and she's so creative in it. So it was really nice bringing my idea into life.
Amazing. All right. I want to open it up now to see if you guys, like Rebecca or Caleb, saw any themes or have any other questions you might want to put to folks.
This is Caleb just piping in real quick. I don't, maybe I missed it in the documentation, but I'm curious if there are any plans to move forward with any of these designs, or if they're, if this kind of is ending now as an exercise, are any of these going to be moving on to something that I'll be able to see more of in the future?
I think certain aspects of the controller that I helped design might be. So at least as far as my practice is concerned, I actually find that when I'm designing all control games, they tend to be quite complicated, and actually making them accessible to people who are not myself is kind of a struggle for me. So with this, in this situation, I had to put somebody else's needs before mine because I was making a controller for them. So I guess it kind of made me focus on the intuitive aspect of the interface and the interaction rather than just a cool thing that I wanted to make. So that's something which I definitely want to keep moving forward in my personal work. But also, I just love the idea of a cute, soft, plushy controller. So that's definitely something that I would like to expand on.
Yeah, Louise and I think we enjoyed working together, and I would certainly be up for working with Louise again. I think with the Kettle Network, there are things that that I kind of personally would like. I see definite room for improvement, and we discussed it in our one of our previous calls. I remember Sightless and I discussed it about the fact that the current display of the information, is entirely, site-based. And I think it would be perfectly, it would be perfectly straightforward to add additional audio elements into that. And it could be creatively interesting to explore maybe, touch-based and movement-based things that sort of deliver the same information in, other more playful ways. But I think realistically, one of the big things, the outcome of, the kettle itself, realistically, I don't think it delivers the kind of, it doesn't deliver the quality of data that you would actually be able to send each other secret messages with it. The reality is that the three temperature sensors kind of heat up at roughly the same rate every time. It's not. I was kind of, when we built it, we were kind of hoping, if you have a little bit of water at the bottom, that's going to generate different data to say a lot of water, or if you hold the button down for ages or something. And the reality is the data kind of comes out looking quite similar. So from my perspective, developing, an actual, marketable network of kettles, or even as a kind of limited run as a kind of art piece of these kind of, connected kettles, I don't think that's actually what the next step on from that project is. In many ways, this is the first step to the next unknown. And, what comes out of the back of this will not be the next version of the kettle. What it will be the next version of the ideas that the kettle is kind of, is prodding at. Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that one of the things that I struggled with in terms of just generally pregnancy related stuff is not having accessible information or help, physical aids that can help with pregnancy for people who are autistic. I was really struggling with that. We tried for ages to find information about interoception issues and anxiety in pregnancy, and most of the even just written information out there was like, oh, how to detect autism in your baby when you're pregnant, rather than, you know, how autistic pregnant people feel. So I was, you know, struggling with that, and I wanted to help with a physical aid rather than well, we want to get information out there. Me and my wife would love to kind of write a book about this, but we wanted to write to find some aids that would help me in my pregnancy journey. So when this project came about, I thought the best way to get an accessible playable device for me was to be linking it to the pregnancy. So it was really great to kind of like discuss my concerns with Julia and kind of think about ways where we can add some tools to help me regulate. And in terms of that, I would love to get something similar out there for other pregnant people and pregnant autistic people rather. And what I would say is that no autistic person is the same, right? So obviously things that I like stimming and movement, and I like soft stuff. I and like certain sounds are really soothing for me. So it would be really great to kind of like have something that's adapted to different people, which can be like, oh, you know, kind of like a workshop kind of thing. What things work for you, and we can design something around that. So the idea is that the cat synth or whatever, you know, animal or whatever physical look you choose would be adapted to your need for the pregnancy.
God, that would be so good. That would be so fun. All right, awesome. If there are any questions on the stream, if folks want to just type those in, I've not seen any so far. And I'll kind of like wait to see if any pop. Because I know there's a bit of a lag, but at this point, I was going to say, is there anything else you guys want to say? Because I know it's getting kind of late, and I want to, I promise everybody I kind of keep to time, so I want to let people go fairly soon. Any other final thoughts or anything you think I should know? Anything you'd add? Anything like that?
I just want to say thanks for having me on the project. It's been
thank you.
No,
I'm
been...
so honored, like honored you guys did this with me.
No, it's been interesting to be a part of it because you know, there's designing a controller, and then there's designing, you know, a non-traditional sort of gameplay. What can essentially be a gameplay device? You know, you essentially gave us a brief to design pretty much anything, kind of, you know, as long as it had a component that sort of fit into an alternative kind of category, and to be able to just be like, you know what, tube. Game controller. And I was like, okay. So to be able to kind of do that and just kind of like just go wherever the idea took us was quite fun. You know, even if we couldn't necessarily complete it, you know, as we would have wanted to due to various constraints, you know, the fact of the matter is, you know, having that opportunity to even get into that design process, learn how to use a Dremel, that was fun. You know, even stuff like that, doing a thing that, you know, I'd not necessarily been able to do previously, you know, was a lot of fun, and to do it in sort of a friendly environment was great. It's just like, you know, hey,
Really
I just said, you know, can I have a go at this? And then it was like, yeah, sure. It's just
Silas Combat told
yeah.
me he just redone a bathroom over the weekend. So I'm
No,
like, okay, it's my power tools. Here you go.
helped. Just to be clear, I'd helped. I hadn't done it myself. But it was just one of those things where I was like, yeah, I get to use a fun power tool that could be potentially slightly dangerous.
It's a Dremel. The chances of you hurting yourself are low.
No, but you know what I mean. Like it was the fact that it was all part of the learning process.
Yeah,
and
totally.
even being able to use my experience of, oh, you know, I understand how arcade buttons fit together, sort of. You know, and it was, you know, we just found a couple, plugged it in, and it was just a very, very interesting iterative process, even in the small amount of time we relatively spent working on it. Just be able to be like, tube, game controller, yes, this, and ideas, and then go from there. It was very fun to be able to be a part of that.
Yeah, I would add to that. I would say that it, you know, it's not often that disabled people are given a voice in terms of accessibility, and especially accessibility when it comes to physical controllers or any kind of games device. And I can say from working as sometimes doing consults on the side for games, it's only been a recent thing where they've been an interest in making games more accessible in terms of adding, audio cues, etc. So it's something that's kind of a modern thing that's only happening around the last 5-10 years. And it's been great to kind of like talk about things that is very specific to you, and have something that can help you in terms of what you need it for. It's been a great experience. And even though it's been difficult sometimes in terms of just, thinking and testing and stuff like that, it's been always a positive experience. And also hearing about other people, what they've made, it's just so creative. It's really amazing what some of the other people have done on this study as well. So it's very great.
It's interesting because I have a disability and I make interfaces because I can't hold traditional controllers. Like, it's really a struggle for me. Every time I get lured into trying, within 2 weeks, my arms are on fire, and I want to die. And that experience of like not being able to play these controllers, like it even took years for me to get to a point where I could play something for a week. When Splinter Cell originally came out, I was so excited because this is like this new medium, and I had my partner at the time buy a console and play it while I watched. And I just think about that experience. And when I started really looking at my PhD process, I started seeing that I was designing differently. I wasn't designing in the same way that I would have for, like, say, an advertising agency, which I had done for, a decade previously. I was coming at things in a really different way, and just working with my disability and my limitations to then play with other people. I was really curious what you all would do, and if I would see commonalities between my design process and yours, and if I would see echoes between what I had done and what you all did. And connection, you guys have all played Bot Party, so you all know that like connection in Bot Party for me is like a really big deal. And it's really cool to see that came through in all the other pieces. And I really resonated with that as like a creator. And the other thing that I really personally resonated with a lot was this sense that like I'm designing first for me, and through silliness and through making a thing and kind of responding to it to see like, and not trying to like make a product or get to an end or like have a terminal point of view of like, now it's done and it is the new product, and I'm like, now it's done and I make something else weird. And that's been kind of like a nice thing to see just now. And I've really enjoyed watching you all make these things. It's been really meaningful for me as a researcher. And I just have to say, I have the most amazing pack of friends that put up with my crap. So thank you all so much for doing this for me. I really appreciate it. And I'm so honored to have you all as friends, and I miss you. Robin, move back to London. This is unacceptable.
Maybe at some point. I'll miss you too, Phoenix.
Now Julia's in the neighborhood too. I'm just saying.
I'm back.
See, everybody's like a boomerang. I can't stay away for long. But thank you all for doing this. And Alistair, thank you again for hosting it. And if you guys think of anything, or if you want to tell me something you would add, or even if you want to just collaborate together in the future, hit me up and, I'll find an excuse or try and find money in the UAL coffers. Speaking of money, you all got my email about that. So hopefully soon that, we can try and like do grants or projects. And I'm really open to working with all of you in the future. This has been super awesome. And I'm going to miss doing this. It's been a really great project. And I'll send my PhD chapter and everything out. And if there's anything you want me to edit or change, you guys have a little bit of editorial control over that. I'm going to be really as inclusive as I can with my process, so you guys feel represented in a way that you're comfortable with. So awesome. And so much love. And thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. It was
you.
really great,
Thank
like
you,
seeing
everyone.
your.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
amazing.
Thank you.
Well done,
Fantastic.
everybody.
Thank you so
Bye.
much, everyone. And thank you,
Bye.
Phoenix, for making this happen.
Yeah, thanks, Alistair, for hosting as well. You did a great job.
Oh, thanks
Yeah.
very much.
All right, bye, everyone.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Awesome.
So, thank you very much, everyone, for coming along and watching. Thank you so much, and we hope that you enjoyed it. And of course, thank you once again to Phoenix for hosting this, and to all the participants. It has been a fantastic project to be a part of, and I feel very grateful to have been able to be involved. Now, just to close, just a few notices about what's coming up on IndieCade. As I mentioned at the beginning of the show, in case you missed it, the IndieCade Anywhere and Everywhere Festival is opening on the 4th of November, so it's just over a month away, and the award show will be on the 5th of November. So, between now and the festival, you can head over to anywhere.indiecade.com and find out all about this year's 48 nominees, as well as the honourable award winners. Last night, we spoke to Kaho Abe on this channel, who is the winner of the Bernie de Koven Big Fun Award. We'll be showing more interviews with nominees and honourable recipients of awards here on the IndieCade channel. The Beyond Screen shows are happening on Wednesday evenings, or Wednesday daytimes if you are in America, and as well as other time spots dotted around the calendar, so do keep an eye on the IndieCade Twitch channel. There's going to be interviews with lots of very exciting people, and of course, if you go to anywhere.indiecade.com, you will be able to find out more about all the games that have been nominated this year. Thank you very much for coming once again, everyone. I hope you have a fantastic evening. Look after yourselves, look after each other, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye-bye.